You're listening to the Catholic Men of America podcast. Catholic Men of America is a professional business fraternity for Catholic men, and membership is free. Join us at CatholicMenofAmerica.com, and you'll benefit from networking and mentorship opportunities, find better employment, learn how to grow your business more quickly, and grow in virtue. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Collegium Sanctorum Angelorum, that's College of the Holy Angels, is a faithful, affordable, and classical liberal arts college. The college offers a residential 4-year program that provides a liberal arts education that is faithful to the intellectual, moral, spiritual, and liturgical traditions of the Roman Catholic Church. It also provides a formation in Catholic living, ora et labora, at affordable rates. The total for tuition, room, and board is just $16,800. Learn more about the Collegium Sanctorum Angelorum at the-collegium.org. That's www.the-collegium.org.
Today on the podcast, Catholic Men of America co-founder Jeff Cassman interviews performance coach Mike Green. Mike is a master certified coach, a fourth-degree Knight of Columbus, and an author. Mike has traveled to all 7 continents, and is famous for, among other things, walking from New York to Alaska. Today Mike lives in Alaska with his wife and children.
Hi there, this is Jeff Cassman with the Catholic Men of America, and on this podcast, I'm excited to introduce Mike Green. Mike is a coach. He lives in Alaska. He is also a knight, and he's got some great things to share about his journey through life and his faith experience and family. And of course, Alaska is always interesting to talk about. Mike, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us some background on who you are, your faith, your family, that sort of thing.
Great. I grew up in Western New York. I'm the son of a 4th-generation railroader. I grew up Catholic from the very beginning of it all until still to today. With faith, Catholicism has been always important in our family. It's been the foundation in which we interact with one another, our neighbors, as well as be citizens of our small town, as well as citizens of the United States. My mother and I would always go. We would always go to church on Sunday, and ultimately, that faith has been the bedrock in which I raise my boys. I have 2 boys, 6 and 9 now, and my wife and I have always go back to our hometown to have them baptized there as well. And our hometown is Hornell, New York, and St. Anne's Church is very famous because of the beautiful ceiling paintings. If any of you are in that area, go check out St. Anne's in Hornell, New York. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous church.
Wonderful. And before the show, we were chatting just a little bit. You've got kind of a neat story about your confirmation. We're a business fraternity, so we kind of are normally talking about business-related things, but because Catholicism imbues everything that we do in life, all those things are relevant, even on a business podcast. Share with the other men the story you were telling me about your confirmation.
Thank you. As I was going through high school, normally what would take place is that you got from your junior year to your senior year, everyone would get confirmed. And I never necessarily liked to do what everybody else does because it's the thing to do. I wanted to be moved my relationship to God. And I steadfastly said to my mom and my dad, I'm not ready. I'm not going to do it just to do it. It means too much to me just to do it. I'm not going to be like everyone else. And my mom was like all upset kind of thing. But when we talked it through, and my father said, he's very strong in his opinion. It makes sense. Just promise us you will. They didn't really have to promise, but they said, well, we'll do it when you're ready then. We'll trust you to do it when you're ready. And at that time, everyone else went off and did their confirmations and such. And I stood there strong that, no, I'm not going to do that. And that really set the tone for how I interacted with all aspects or all new chapters of my life. Is when I'm ready, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because it's the right thing to do. And my relationship with God was so important, or is so important, that I got to come to him wholeheartedly. And I'm not going to enter into any relationship, and I still do this to this day, unless I can give my best, my fullest to any individual I meet. Doesn't matter if it's at the gas station, or it doesn't matter if I'm interacting with others in a coaching professional relationship. And that's been a very, very important moment in my life, because peer pressure back in those days, like, well, all my buddies are getting confirmed and everybody's having their parties, and their parents are saying, so why didn't you get confirmed? Well, I had to steadfastly step into my relationship with God publicly over and over again, that I'm not ready to open up that relationship with God. And it wasn't until I was 21 that I was ready to do it. My great friend, Father Jim Yeager, he's over at the Rochester Diocese in Western New York. He and I were great friends. I mean, we'd smoke cigars and talk about life. He's a great, great guy. He's a fantastic individual. And eventually I said, Father Jim, I'm ready to get confirmed. Will you be my sponsor? And then that's how it all began. And I was honored to do it that way, because I truly was able to step into myself at that juncture of my life, and pray on it, and be okay with my relationship with God, instead of what everybody else was doing.
And when did you join the Knights, and what has that experience been like for you?
I joined the Knights of Columbus basically when I was 23 or so, because I wanted to give back to the community. And if I may go back in time for a moment, I started traveling the world when I was 20 years old. And in my hometown, and I write about this in my book, and we'll talk about that later, my hometown really supported me. I would go around and I would raise money to get to go over to Russia to work with the Russian juvenile delinquents and support them in their rehabilitation, and also to teach spoken American English. And my hometown really came together when I had parties to raise money. So when I started traveling, I knew the power of community and the power of God and the relationship to God. And it's always about, how can I help, or how can I give? And when I was about 23, I remember being asked, I had some of the most important men in my life came to me. There were Knights, and they said, Mike, we want you to represent the Knights of Columbus. You're a young man, you're seeing the world, and you would benefit us if you came to be part of the organization. So it was a huge honor, because at the time my father had passed away at a very young age. And these older men literally came to me, and it set it up, and it was really powerful. And it was an opportunity to give back. So I started with the Knights at age 23, became a fourth degree. And again, remember, I was traveling the world. I would basically travel the world for half the year, come back to my hometown for a month or two, and then go up to Alaska. So I became a fourth degree somewhere around 25, I believe it is. It's hard to remember those days. But it was great, because I was able to participate in the cycles of life, and the cycles of life through a Catholicism experience. What I mean by that is, a cycle of life is death. So we would go and support the family and do all of the rituals that were implied, and also helping people become third degrees or second degrees. And so that was very, very important to me as well. And what's most important about it was they never ever tried to say, well, Mike, you got to be in this box. And the Knights always said, come to us as you are. And that was so important in my life, that because I was like nobody else in my hometown, very small town. I was traveling the world. By the time I turned 23, I've been to, I don't know how many countries, and I was different, but they accepted that, because we all had the relationship with God, and how important that is to us.
Wonderful. Now you've got some pretty interesting journeys in your background. I used to think that I was pretty well traveled, and would joke that I was high mileage, but you've done some neat things. Tell the listeners about this time you walked from New York to Alaska, and it wasn't like you had a credit card or a debit card that had been loaded up, and you You walked for a little while, and then you would spend the night at a nice hotel and so forth. This is pretty hardcore. What was that all about?
Right. Well, thank you for asking the question. So I hitchhiked from Western New York to Alaska, and lots of it I did walk. I was a school teacher. I went to Brockport University to get my teaching degree to be able to fall back on, right? And it was during that time that I realized that I had a bigger calling, and that my students at this time, it was in basically 1998, 99. This is when cell phones were just happening, and remember, 24-hour news was just starting back then. And I noticed my students started to be affected by that. And I started doing life lessons on Fridays. So no matter where we were in the curriculum, Fridays was a life lesson. And I taught them everything from how to hold themselves in public. Why is it important to look people in the eyes? Why is it important to walk this way? And how to go to dinner? Why are all these forks? Or life lessons about going to college, things like this. Well, one day I noticed that my students were really negative about other people. And we started having this conversation, and they said, why is it that if something happens in Texas, you think it's going to happen in Hornell? And where do you get this from? Well, they hear it from their parents, or they get it from the news. I said, okay, let's do an experiment. And now this is just off the cuff. I did not even plan this. This has just all happened. And it was amazing. In the book, I write about it in detail, but for the purposes of our conversation, I'll keep it brief. I said, so what I want you to do on Friday or on Sunday, when the newspaper comes out, just take a marker or a pencil or whatever you need to do after your family's read it, and put a positive on the headline or put a negative. And then when you get done, okay, bring back your information. Right. So in that area, we have the Democrat Chronicle from Rochester, the Buffalo Daily News, et cetera, and the Hornell Evening Tribune. So there's 3 different basic newspapers, even Elmira, New York sometimes. Well, they came back and they gave me all the information. And then I said to them, okay, great. On the next Friday life lesson, let's imagine that you were on the side of the road and your car tire went flat. And they said, well, we don't even drive, Mr. Green. I go, just imagine that. And again, this is just when the cell phones just started. Imagine your cell phone, you don't get coverage. What would you do if a gentleman came up to the car and offered to help you, right? Would you, 1, lock yourself in the car and wait for the troopers to show up? 2, would you support and help this man, but be helpful enough that if he tried something, you could run away? Or would you be right there shoulder to shoulder and support that person? Well, I took a poll, and of that poll, what was interesting, it matched exactly the negativity of the newspaper. And I said, well, why is it that this is happening? And they said, because this is what we hear. This is what we do. I go, and again, this is written in my book really in detail. I said, out of nowhere, off the cuff, I said, well, and this is my first group of kids in the day. It was a 4th grade period. I said, well, I'm going to hitchhike from New York to Alaska with no money or no food to prove to you that you can believe in the kindness of others. Out of nowhere, completely out of nowhere. I was literally an out-of-body experience, and I was watching myself doing this, and I was thinking to myself, what are you doing? And so that happened. And so ultimately I did hitchhike that May, because I couldn't teach to the test, which I was against at the time as a teacher, teaching to the test. And I ultimately did hitchhike. So that was a big answer for just the beginning of it all.
Collegium Sanctorum Angelorum provides an education that is faithful to the unchanging magisterium of the Church. The Collegium provides a formation in Catholic living through regular prayer, including Mass and parts of the Divine Office, opportunities for every student to work in support of the mission of the college, co-curricular activities that support intellectual inquiry, spiritual formation, and moral discernment, and a faculty and staff that is committed to providing exemplary models of Catholic living. The Collegium provides a rigorous academic program of studies that will integrate courses into a unified conceptual whole, in which students are helped to see the relationships between the subject matter of one course and another. The academic program is also integrated with the college's work program in a way that enables students to gain invaluable experience in the running, managing, and expanding of the Collegium's supporting business, Heavenly Roast Coffee. Learn more about the Collegium Sanctorum Angelorum at www.the-collegium.org. That's the-collegium, collegium.org.
You could tell tons of stories about that experience. And that would all be fascinating, but I'm frequently accused of going kind of long on these things. So I want to be sensitive to everybody's time. Is there a story that really sticks out of all of those experiences that you had that you would like to share with the men about that journey of walking across America?
One that stands out mostly is the very first time that I had to ask for food. Now, I didn't ask for handouts, or if someone picked me up hitchhiking, I didn't say, well, my name is Mike Green, I'm hitchhiking from New York to Alaska and I need money or food. I never said that, ever. So I would go to a restaurant that was family owned, and I would go up and ask to see the owner or the manager. And the very first time doing it, saying, listen, I went inside and I saw an older lady, and I had my cross that my mom gave me as a graduation gift outside. I always have it on. And I walk up and I said, it was very, very emotional because it was the first time I ever did this. But then I thought to myself, and it kind of hit me right here. My cross hits me right here. And I thought, I got this. Okay. So I went in and talked to her from the heart. And I said, you know what? I noticed that there's some cigarette butts and some trash in your parking lot. If you give me a trash bag, I'm willing to work for a half hour for just a sandwich. And the lady was like really taken back by that, like very uncomfortable. And I was not uncomfortable. I just knew what needed to happen. Speak from the heart, right? Have God behind me, and or in front of me too, right? And she stopped. She goes, well, we don't really do that, but we'll just give you a sandwich. And I said, no, I'm sorry, I can't accept that. And I turned to walk away, and there was that awkward silence. She goes, no, okay, here, honey, you can take it back. Well, everybody in the whole restaurant stopped and was listening to this conversation, and everybody's looking out the windows as I did this. Well, when I went back in, she actually had to call me in, and she goes, we got your food right over here. And she was a huge table full of food and to-go containers. And that happened over and over as I traveled through the North American continent.
That is amazing. I absolutely love the entire kind of growth curve that you've shared with us there. The fear that you felt kind of thinking about doing this, and the humility it involved to do it, and then the courage to actually to say that, but also the response of this woman. I think there's a profound lesson there for our culture as we think about men in the business world, whether it's from the boardroom to the mailroom, that if we constantly remain with our orientation towards looking to solve the problems that other people have first and foremost, having faith and trust in God and the general goodness of humanity, that's a guaranteed path, right? We can't go wrong. I mean, even if you had come back inside and she just gave you some leftover sandwich, it would have been an extraordinary experience. There would have been maybe a different lesson to learn there, but it still would have been an extraordinary growth in virtue. That's a pretty neat story. But I got to ask you, all those days that you spent walking, was there a low point? Was there a point where you kind of were like the prodigal son, and you looked towards heaven and said, okay, I think I've had enough, I want to go back? Did you have that kind of experience?
I did, but I wouldn't say I wanted to go back. I was just like, what have I got myself into, right? Lord, what have I got myself into? On the north side of Chicago, and there's just road, the traffic's just whizzing by. And you really never want to hitchhike from a place like that. And I just got dropped off. I had a sign that said north and west. That's all I had. And it was just whizzing by me. And I thought, Lord, what did I get myself into? Just, do I need to get off this highway? And there wasn't an answer. There was just an act that I didn't even think of. It just happened. I just put my sign out and I started looking at people's eyes as they were going whizzing by. And the man picked me up. And in fact, he was a Catholic man. And in fact, I still talked to him. And yesterday was his birthday. And I just said, yeah. And I still, yeah, it's a great man. I won't say his name, but I've supported him throughout these years now and coached his kids. His sons were going to Boulder when I was living there. And he picked me up because all of a sudden I just saw you and I knew I had to pull over. And we had that conversation right when we got in the car. And then we just talked and we didn't speak from here. We spoke from here. And he still to this day texts me almost on the anniversary when he picked me up because he was going to reconcile with his father because his father never got along. He was reconciling with his father so that if his father did pass away, and here I am talking about, hey, my dad passed away very quickly. That made a huge deal to him. It was very, very profound. And I thought to myself, and I'm sitting in my seat like this going, wow, God is great. It was amazing. Truly.
That's fantastic. You've done a lot of traveling, but there was another trip that jumped out in your background that I wanted to ask you about. And I promise you we'll get to who the rest of your life, but this is really interesting. You took a trip to Peru, and it was another kind of extraordinary experience in your life that I think Catholic men are going to be particularly interested in. Could you share that with us?
Yeah, great. It's with Father Mario, the walking priest of Peru. He's a Franciscan monk, and he's been there since the age of 20 or 21. And he's from Wellsville, New York. And my best friend's grandmother taught him Spanish before he went down to Peru. So he's far deep in the Amazoa. And unfortunately, just recently, and I asked you to pray for him, he had a stroke about 2 weeks ago. Anyway, he's got a father. It's called the Father Mario or Father Bob. I call him Father Mario because in Spanish it's hard to say Bob, so everybody calls him Mario. Father Mario out of Satipo, Peru. Now I met him before I went to Mexico, Central and South America, because he was the walking priest of Peru who would walk from the Buffalo Diocese all the way across central New York State to raise money for his mission down there. So when I met with him, we really clicked. And he said, well, if you ever come to Peru, come to Satipo, and everybody knows me. Well, everybody in Peru knows him. So eventually, Satipo is on the eastern side of the Andes Mountains. And I got there. I said, Father Mario, how can I serve? Please let me know. And he showed me around the different villages. And then he said, well, Michael, you can serve me by going down the river, the Satipo River, into the Frontera, or the Amazoa, as they say, and bring these Christian charities or Catholic charities, everything from wheat to rice to books to Bibles, you name it, clothing to everything. I said, of course, Father, I'll do that. So I went with his right-hand man, and we went, I think, 5 days downriver, which is a very fast-moving river. So you got to remember that when we come back, right? So we have 5 days down, 6 days or 7 days back. And it was amazing to experience God's love with people that are totally different than you, but you all share the same connection. These women were wearing burlap sacks. The men were wearing T-shirts and a pair of shorts. Maybe they had flip-flops. And I was able to spend a lot of quality time with these different villages. And of course, they treated us like royalty. I asked not to be. They fed us everything we could. And what was most profound is that the charity that we offered them, Father Brown's mission work, they were so thankful that all they kept saying in Spanish, and I forget how to say it in Spanish because my Arabic gets in the way. They said, please tell everyone, thank you, thank you. And I saw how those books were, and it wasn't like, you do this, we give you this book, or you do this for us, we give you that. Like, if you ever interact with other charities, that's what happens. This did not come from that. It came from a place of this. And it was amazing. And I got a lot of stories for it, but it made me a better Catholic. And what I did for Father Brown afterwards is that I went to all those churches in Western New York, Central New York, and went and spoke in behalf of him when he couldn't make it for whatever reason, and to support that mission work. And he's a very dear friend to this day. And I'm grateful for that experience because it took me to a different level. Now, remember, when I came back, I'm in service to my community. And the fourth degree Knights, I let them understand about it and help them understand truly what it looks like to give that dollar bill, what that translates into. So that was amazing.
Pretty extraordinary. And so I love, in terms of the arc of your life, you weren't just traveling just to travel. You were working very hard to kind of really soak up the life lessons, and whether it was the challenges or the obstacles, whatever it might be, you were really trying to seek the truth and to grow in every way. And that kind of takes us to your profession. You are a master certified coach. And there are a lot of coaches out there these days, but you do something really different. Tell us about what it means to be a master certified coach, and how you're different from all of these other coaches that are running around out there today.
Thank you. Well, it goes back to Catholicism. You do your best in service of others, right? And for me to be the best, I need to excel to that rate of what is the best. And master certified coach by the International Coach Federation is considered the gold standard in the world. So I always strive to do my very best in service of others. And becoming a master coach has allowed me to ultimately, as well as writing the book, step into that service authentically. Keyword authentically, because when I show up to support an individual, I got to be there for them in an authentic, in-service manner. So what makes me different? I believe that my diversity and experience throughout 63 countries, every continent, has allowed me to see the perspective of other paradigms of people who are in the same or similar situation, and just ask the question that allows that person to either pull back the curtain of their current paradigm and to see another way, possibly. I think that that's really, really important, especially when it's really a big decision that needs to be made, and it supports that person's development based on truth, right? Because when we're congruent, we make good decisions. And I mean by congruent, I'm talking about just, sense of self, higher power, service of others. What's the goal? If you're congruent with that, you're going to make far better decisions. And so I, as a coach, ask the questions that support their development through a vast array of paradigm shifting, if you will, from different cultures, whether it be the Middle East, or whether it be the Mongolians, or whether it be the Russians or Nicaraguans, etc. The different perspectives of life. And that has allowed me to create the life that I want to lead as a father, as a husband, as a member of community here in Alaska.
So you've got a philosophy about growth and development and formation that's drawn heavily from experiences in the wild. In fact, you're saying on your website is great leaders are formed in the wild. So obviously you think there are some lessons and some opportunities for modern man to get out of the office and get out of from behind the desk, and either literally go out into the wild, because I know you do some of that, or figuratively expose these men to, and I know you work with women as well, but to expose people to some challenge, to some rigors, to some difficulties, to kind of stress them. Is that fair enough?
Yes, that's very well said. Thank you. Yes. So what I mean by that is that the wild happens whenever we have to leave the known and go into the unknown. And whether it be in the boardroom, that's considered some people say it's wild. Yeah, I would agree. When you're making hundreds of millions of dollars worth of decisions. Yes, it's wild.
Yeah, you got some,
but
you
also,
got some sharks and some lions in the boardroom, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And then those, brute, E2 brute, right? Those people who are going to get you. But also, as you alluded to, I also coach not only virtually or in person, but also here in the Alaska wild of the bush of Alaska, or any place in the world. But Alaska is my home. This picture behind me is literally out my driveway. I mean, I can see it through my window right here. And my clients come to Alaska to do Alaska leadership adventure. And depending on their time frame, we do everything from world-class trout fishing, salmon fishing, sea kayaking, backcountry experiences, etc. And it's in that wild, or in the bush of Alaska, or in that wild wherever that wild is for that client. I support them by helping them to discover their truths or rediscover their truths, right? But also, while they're out away from the desk, away from their cell phone, away from all the decisions of the day-to-day operations of life and work, I support them in ultimately recentering, readjusting, or recalibrating, and then ultimately making a plan based on those truths that they find. And I write about it in the book as well. The character's name is Ian. He's a composite of many other client conversations that I had, and it follows along the thread of what it looks like to have an adventure leadership coaching experience with me, away from self-service or a Zoom call.
Yeah. Now, we were joking earlier about the boardroom, but some of your past, your success stories have been, not just with stuffy executives in a boardroom, but you've been in the Middle East, you've been in Asia, you've worked with men that are out on oil rigs and so forth. So it's not so much a class issue. It's men who are seeking greatness, women again, excuse me, people who are seeking greatness. They want to grow, they want to be challenged, they want to become better versions of themselves. Of course, our Lord calls us to be perfect. That's a pretty high standard. You're helping these folks that have got that internal desire to improve. Is that right?
That's correct. Very much so. Well said. Yep. And with that, it comes from all levels, as you alluded to, whether it be the new hire all the way up to the general manager of a huge corporation that I'm having the honor and the privilege to coach. And that's been one of the most gratifying experiences, that I get so many emails or texts, especially now that the book came out, of people just saying thank you, and their families saying thank you to me. I was like, it's amazing, and I'm grateful that God has called me to this. And I was aware enough to know that this is my gift, and that I should use this gift to support the men and women of our world.
Now, you mentioned the book, so let's talk about that. Your book, Wanderlust: A Hero's Journey to Seven Truths. So I like the play there on wanderlust. We're good Catholic men. We don't want to talk about lust. So tell us about what wandermust is all about.
Well, it's a play on words. You got wander. When we think wander, you think this kind of wander about, whatever, kind of like a butterfly in the wind. And then must is kind of a drive, right? I must do this, or I must have this done, etc. So it's a play on words, the yin and the yang, if you will. And then, of course, the hero's journey is referring to Joseph Campbell's hero's journey regarding all of that. And that's another story for another time. And what I do in the book is I talk about how I came from humble beginnings, as I said earlier, and then how I answered the call based on my faith and what took place. How did I get to that continent? What was the discovery? What truth did I discover? And now how do I apply that in my coaching with this client named Ian? And that's how it is. And so far, it's been overwhelming, the response. And people call it a page turner. They really, really enjoy it. People laugh, they cry, and they self-reflect. That's pretty much what everybody says.
That's amazing. And you're offering a free chapter of the book on your website, so people can kind of get a taste of that. Your coaching that you provide, you do both virtual Zoom based kind of coaching, but you also have got some adventure coaching. I'm looking at your site, not just in Alaska and Nicaragua, but in Latin America, in Scotland and Norway and Jordan, Tanzania, Uganda, Mongolia.
Yeah.
And I know you do some custom adventures as well. What does that look like?
Well, for the custom aspect, it can be for individuals, or I just signed a board team up, or a leadership team to come to Alaska to do their retreat in the bush of Alaska. So basically what you see on that website is all the logistics are taken care of. You, the participant, the coachee, we discuss how long you want to be away, and then I just create that for you. Some people have a desire to drink scotch and see castles, or they want to go to Nicaragua to experience where the finest cigars or the finest tobacco is grown. And I'm very close friends with the Plasencia family, and get all access there. Or you want to go back to Petra and see where all that what does it look like? Or do you want to just see a different culture such as the Mongolians? So what I do is I offer not only an opportunity to travel a part of the world where you are experiencing new and everlasting things, but as we're doing it at the right time, I'm coaching you through about what are you seeing here? What is this? What paradigms are being challenged by the way in which they do this? And I'm coaching them through that. Now I do that as an individual or for leadership teams. So the beauty of it all is that once we start the coaching process, the engagement, when you arrive or I arrive with you, whatever airport, you don't have to think about money at all. You just got to take in the experience, and all the logistics are taken care of. And that's one of the values that a lot of these CEOs and folks with not a lot of time away from family or the boardroom really appreciate.
What are the kind of characteristics of the individuals who are good candidates for working with you? What do they have that you can't work with everybody, obviously? What are the
Nor do I want to.
Yeah, of course.
Right.
And that's the same in any profession, whether you're a mechanic or a plumber. You probably you do specific things, right? You might work on a diesel engine, or you're great at an import, or you do emergency plumbing work, or if you're a professional, an attorney, a doctor, whatever, you've got a specialty. So for the men who are listening, help them understand where your specialty is as it relates to them, their characteristics, where they might be in their life right now, that they should pick up the phone and call you, or rather navigate to your website and learn some more about you. Who is that person?
If you have that angst or that experience of, I know I could do more, I just need someone to support me that is not biased, that I'm not a guru, I just ask great questions, depth questions. If you're that person that think that you're driving home right now and it's past dinner time and you're about to put your children to bed, or if you've gone through something major and you just want a time away to decompress and think it through and then reevaluate and make a plan going forward, those people that are aware enough that something needs to change. And if I do that one small thing, it makes a big difference over a period of time. Most of my clients are driven, hardworking. They want to be the best they possibly can be. And then they know they just need the support of a good coach, right? So.
Wonderful. Mike, what's the website so we can share that with everyone?
MikeGreenLeadership.com.
MikeGreenLeadership.com. All right, we will put that in the show notes. Anything else that you want to share as we wrap it up?
I'm just grateful for this opportunity to speak with you and your listeners. It's important to me because my faith has played a part, and I feel like this has been a way in which to give back. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to do so.
Absolutely. Thank you for being with us. I look forward to reading the book and hearing more about the adventures. Mike Green, MikeGreenLeadership.com. Thank you for being with us today.
I am grateful. God bless.
You've been listening to Catholic Men of America co-founder Jeff Cassman, interviewing performance coach Mike Green. Learn more about Mike at MikeGreenLeadership.com.
The Collegium Sanctorum Angelorum is concerned about formation as it is about information. Thus, the residential aspect of the Collegium is critical. The residential aspect of the college constitutes a program of prayer, centered on the traditional Latin Mass, and parts of the divine office, work, and study. The formation is contemplative in nature, to which the traditional forms of prayer are more naturally aligned. This will also serve the needs of traditional Catholics for whom there is currently no college devoted to such a traditional formation. While many colleges claim to prepare students for life, the Collegium focuses on preparing students for heaven. The Collegium keeps its costs affordable by limiting the size and scope of the program, by supporting the program with auxiliary income-producing enterprises, and by support from benefactors. Learn more about the Collegium Sanctorum Angelorum at www.the-collegium.org. That's the-collegium, collegium.org.
You've been listening to the Catholic Men of America podcast. Catholic Men of America is a professional business fraternity for Catholic men, and membership is free. Join us at CatholicMenofAmerica.com, and you'll benefit from networking and mentorship opportunities, find better employment, learn how to grow your business more quickly, and grow in virtue. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.